but I think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
It was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 6, 3, 2, 9, 7.
Media doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It is Monday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. We do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. What are those things, you may wonder? There's way too much, so I'm going to have to sum up. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. What is up? What's going on, guys? Got a doozy for you tonight, per usual. Talking about, I think this is the beauty of this show. The beauty of this show is just hearing everybody's amazing takes regarding all the things. It's literally, you go anywhere else, almost anywhere else, and you just get locked into the same thing over and over and over again. You know, you get locked into politics, or you get locked into this or that or the other thing. I get so sick of the same thing over and over and over again, and I do enjoy just being able to come up with something new, just new ideas, new thoughts, new things, at least interesting to me, you know. And I think that's hopefully those things are interesting to you. And so, I mean, look, that's what this is all about. It's as always, this is just a conversation. This is not any declaration of truth or any of the rest of that. So we don't have to come here with a chip on our shoulder and try and pick fights with everybody and try and describe everything as the truth of the matter, right? I'm less interested in the truth. I'm more interested in, how about the possibilities of the truth? And that's what this has always been about, just a conversation amongst others. And it's blossomed into a beautiful thing. And that's what's going on tonight, as usual, right? So it's my long-winded way of saying we do this to include you. We're live right now on, of course, Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. That's digital radio. What's up, guys? I see you out there. I see everybody in the chat. I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Monday. Now, okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight is dragons, right? Not just dragons, not exactly dragons. What about the idea of a dragon? What about the mythological characteristics of a dragon? What about the symbolism of a dragon? What about the new Game of Thrones show coming out next month? This called, what is this called? It's called House of the Dragon. There's all kinds of things, right? I think just looking at the news cycles and trying to keep track of things, I had this weird sensation mentioned that there's a lot of dragons being talked about, right? And I was like, nah, really? I'm imagining things. I must be. And maybe it's the Game of Thrones fever for the prequels coming out. Again, I think it's August 22nd is when that releases. And it is called House of the Dragon. And it is, of course, about, you guys remember if you've seen Game of Thrones. If you're not, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it is about the Khaleesi's family. You guys remember her, Daenerys Targaryen, the Targaryens, and the House of the Dragon, meaning that, that's for another time. But I mean, it's weird that we get these sort of circular news cycles that just go on and on, rambling about division politics and the rest of this stuff, and then something will come out, like something huge that just kind of changes the conversation and the thought and the zeitgeist itself. Like Stranger Things, it totally did that, right? People were talking about portals and, the Upside Down, and Dungeons and Dragons is back. And I mean, there's so many things that just like one huge release kind of happens and it changes just the conversation and what people are thinking about. And I have to say, I did notice in the past week or 10 days, there's been a lot of dragons and mention of dragons in the news cycle. And so I had to go back and double check myself. It was sort of an inkling, and I went back and looked. Sure as crap, it's there. So again, as always, all my sources are linked down below, and you can find all that stuff, links in the description down below. And I encourage you to go follow up on me and make sure I'm not just pulling a fast one on you, just making up random stuff for clicks. I mean, there's so much better ways to do it than actually having interesting conversations, because nobody wants that. People want to argue. People want to just crap on each other. That's what people want. That's how you get clicks. That's not how I get clicks. I don't want to do that. I don't really care about that. I care about us, about the sharing of ideas, and that's that. That's what's going on. That's what the show's about. That's what the show's always been about. Like I said, we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, Twitter, broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. If you want to call the show, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. You can also click the Discord link at troubledminds.org, and that's the official website of Troubled Minds, and you can find what can you find? You can find all the things, the social media. You can find the shop with Troubled Minds merch. You can find the podcast. Everything is there. The phone number and the Discord link are right on top of the website, troubledminds.org. You absolutely cannot miss it. By the way, that number is persistent. So if you're listening on an archive on the podcast feed or something, and you have a thought or an idea, just call and leave me a voicemail. It's 24 hours. Troubled Minds is always open. There's always room for another troubled mind. All right. So as we do all this, I think that settles us. We are, like I said, broadcasting on the Fringe FM. A couple ways you can help the Fringe. Please go to join the Discord there as well. Fringe.fm/chat. Watching the actual chat going on over there on Discord. What's up, S Magician and Mike? I see you. How are you? And we're also download the Fringe app. Go to your whatever app store you use. Of course, that's going to be Apple or Android, and it's free, completely free. The Fringe app, and it's the easiest way to listen to Troubled Minds at precisely 7 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Thursday. You smash the play button on the Fringe app, and you get us. You get Troubled Minds. You get me. You get these conversations, and you never know what's going to happen on a live show. So there we go, and I think that settles it. That gets us to where we need to be. We're doing our thing. Okay, so now dragons, in particular dragons. Right? It's one of those things where the world over, people have talked about these things for thousands of years. They are pervasive, and not just, again, in the Far East. We're talking about North America. We're talking about Europe. Literally everywhere. South America, dragons are everywhere. And it makes you wonder, right? It makes me wonder anyway, if there's any truth to the rumors, to the myth, to the folklore, in that, so the mainstream thought goes like this, right? It goes like this, that the reason people see dragons or tell tales of dragons is because they found fossils of like pterodactyls and things like this, right? Like the sort of dragon-like beings, okay? And which are now dinosaurs. We know them as dinosaurs. But, let's say 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, whatever, they didn't know this. I guess. I guess they didn't know this. It makes sense that they would know this, because why else would bones be buried in the ground, fossilized? But I digress there. But right, so that's the mainstream theory of this, of why everybody the world over was talking about these things and telling tales of dragons. And well, maybe. But it also brings up a lot of interesting questions in my mind, including, right, like we know a pterodactyl, right? We can see the thing, and I mean, that's kind of dragon-like, right? So I don't know, given that a pterodactyl with like a huge wingspan and maybe could carry children away, and, you know, that type of thing going on, all they need to do is breathe a little bit of fire, and, well, that's not a very big step from a pterodactyl to a dragon, is it? So I don't know. So what do you think tonight? We're going to get into not just this, like I said, the symbolism, some of the mythology here. We can get into a little bit of Game of Thrones if you're into that. But what do you think about dragons in particular? Do you think that at some point in history they were actually here on Earth? And, you know, that doesn't mean a pterodactyl. I mean a dragon, like an actual dragon. And, you know, as I look through some of the archaeological articles that have come out recently, quick shout out to Matt in Colorado and APOC for sending me some dragon stuff before we got started tonight. But there's a lot of dragon. I don't know. It's like they find a new dragon of terror, like fossil. I don't know, like every couple years or so. I mean, it seems like it, right? Maybe that's not the case, but it could be the clickbait sensationalism that we're all dealing with as part of these ridiculous news cycles. But I don't know. So what do you think? Do you think at any point ever in history that dragons existed on the Earth? That's the first question. Number two, do you think that if they did, that they were actually maybe in the same space as people, as humans, even modern humans? And that, right, we look at, we did a show last week on King Arthur and that whole bit, which I thought was fantastic. That went over very well. But the question is, right, in those tales, well, there are dragons. There are, right, wyverns, and there are, you name it, like all kinds of these kind of dragon-esque entities that they've talked about forever. So do you think, number one, did they ever exist? Number two, if they did, do you think that they existed alongside modern humans? And number three, how come we haven't found the definitive dragon skeleton just yet? That's where we begin tonight. That's what's on my mind. There's some ideas, lots of theories out there. And the reason I'm talking about this is because, like I said, if you look at, just scroll down, look in the links down below on YouTube. They're all on YouTube right now. And there's so many stories about dragons out there right now. It's crazy. It's so crazy. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? One more time, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. You can also click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Let's go to Nick in California. What's up, my friend? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you?
Hey, good evening, Michael. Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear. Go right ahead. What do you believe about dragons? Do you think they're real, or do you think it's just all bedtime stories?
I think you first of all, great topic for tonight. I think you broke it down pretty well. I kind of subscribed to segments of how you explained the origin of the quote unquote dragons and you know the myths and the fantasies that kind of arose around them. I think that there's a little piece of that that's true in each instance. I think, you know, one, they probably did exist. Two, they probably did exist alongside people. And three, you know, the reason why we haven't found anything is that they had gone out out of the natural order of things much longer than we had. I guess I wouldn't say quite around the time the dinosaurs went out, but obviously people went around then. But I would think that they went out around at a time where any trace of them, any of their, we wouldn't be able to find it. Period. But let me go to the first point. Why do I think they exist? Why did exist? Excuse me. I'm running kind of low on energy here.
That's okay. You got me. I got your back.
I think that they did simply because, as you explained, there are roots to the dragon story in antiquity. So we're talking about thousands of years of human history where these creatures, flying I guess we would call them what we would think maybe as dinosaurs or flying reptiles, people said that they saw things. Now, if we believe our ancestors to be as not only as ingenious as they were, but very observant of the environment that they lived in, they like to document everything that they'd seen. So what would they do? What they would do is that they would draw or try to present whatever they'd seen, or they pass it along in oral history. So dragons kind of come into play there, whether it's in Chinese mythology, ancient European folklore. they've popped up everywhere, and it's always kind of the same thing. It's always this massive flying beast, either predatory in nature, causing grief to the locals, and then there's always some warrior, some brave soul that goes up against the creature and kills it. Now, could this be fanciful lore? Them kind of just dabbling in mysticism and fictionalizing the realities? Of course, absolutely. Then again, we take a look at what has existed on our planet. Like you mentioned, dinosaurs, obviously. There have been pterosaurs, whether it's pterodactyls, pteranodons, flying reptiles. There have been other creatures that have existed. What if something survived from their lineage into our modern, I would say the post-prehistoric world, so the civilized world, and people started seeing these things, or they lived alongside them like there was nothing new to it, just kind of like woolly mammoths and prehistoric man. Maybe dragons are in the same vein, that they're kind of like dinosaurs, but they're not. And then if you look at the mysticism around them and the symbolism that they represent, it's always of power, of great strength, of sometimes redemption. It's always, I feel like there were far, maybe if they did, I believe that if they had existed, there were far fewer than dinosaurs in existence. Maybe they were an evolutionary offshoot, and that's what people were dealing with, or they were something completely out of the realistic realm, so to speak. They were supernatural in nature, because if you look at ancient Chinese mythology, there's a lot of mysticism there. Or if you look at stories from King Arthur's era and St. George and the Dragon and other stories, there's always some kind of mystical element to the dragon itself. So to answer kind of each of your questions, I would say kind of very optimistic, yes, most likely. And the last question, I don't know, do you want to interject really quick before I continue? I feel like I'm rambling on here.
No, you're totally good. You're spot on here. There is a lot to this. It's not so simple as just the questions, because it does go deep, and it's interesting that in the different continents there are different representations of the dragon. Like you said, many of them are flying dragons, but many are also not. And some are as airborne, and some actually are crawling in holes in the ground. So I mean, it's pretty wild that you have, and in the European version of that is, it is the thing to be conquered, right? The knights go after the dragon, right? And the princess, the maiden fair, right? To try and save the maiden, that type of thing. But the Chinese aspect of that is completely different, in that, dragons are a harbinger of good luck, and right, it's not necessarily the quest to kill the thing. It's like when they show up, everybody's elated because, maybe, who knows, like what that looked like then. But it's just fascinating that there's just different ways to look at the same sort of thing. But yeah, go ahead on the third one there. Thanks for giving me a second here and just slowing down. We're okay. We got time, man. We got time. Go right ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I want to keep with your consistent flow. You keep a good flow to the show, and I don't want to just electrify that and just kind of just overwhelm everybody. So yeah, whatever I can do that, I'll do that for you.
You're totally good. Totally good. Go right ahead.
Why we haven't found anything now? When things die in the natural world, it's actually, let's say if we're looking at fossils, how does this kind of look back at just how long it took for us to kind of dig up and document and really understand, let's say, what dinosaurs were, or prehistoric animals like saber-toothed cats and woolly mammoths were. Now, I would kind of contradict myself if I bring up, okay, well, the dragons there have to be fossilized remains or things of that nature. I mean, obviously, yes, but I would say if there's some other mystical element to their existence, maybe there's something else going on there. Maybe they were never meant to be found when they died. If that's something you want to entertain, maybe that's what dragons were. They were kind of, again, like dinosaurs or other beasts, but there were some kind of mystical qualities to them, and that's why there are no traces of them. But then if we look at the modern day, right, if we're not only counting, let's say, quote unquote, dragons, flying dragons, so to speak, you could say that people are seeing them today, whether they're seeing something in the jungles of Africa, they call them Makilamembe, or you look at the Canadian territory near Lake Ogopogo. They call him, I guess, the Ogopogo monster. There's also Lake Champlain in Canada. They call him Champ, or the infamous Loch Ness monster in Scotland. Sea serpents, sea dragons. The people are continually seeing this stuff today, and that kind of begs the question: were there different variations of dragons themselves, like you said, burrowing in holes underground, flying in the skies, and what about them makes them so special? Are they just simply animals that were just ancient animals that somehow existed into our time, or is there something more to them? And this is why our ancestors really emphasize symbolizing them in art and architecture, and really passing on the history of these creatures through oral history. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, I like to entertain the thought that that they were real and they maybe even existed to this day in different variations. But who knows? At the end of the day, it's just interesting. It's a really interesting topic. I'm really glad you picked this one.
Yeah, thank you. I think so too. And so here's an interesting take on this as well. So let's say that dinosaurs, or so let's go down and say yes, in that dragons did exist. Again, drinking some maybe juice here. They existed alongside modern people. Okay, we'll just take those first two and say yes to both of those. Ancient astronaut theorists say yes. Okay, so in this case, it's dragons. But then in those cases, let's say they were extremely rare. I mean, we have there's species that go extinct all the time, and even in, let's say, the folklore and mythology of dragons themselves, they don't seem to be an abundant thing anyway. They seem to be extremely rare as it is. Like even in the Jabberwocky sort of a tale of lore, even in the old days. So maybe if we're talking about these things and they did exist, and archaeologically speaking, they were so incredibly rare. Well, how would we expect to find one? I mean, that's the craziest part here, right? Another thing, real quick, Ronald over on Rockfin says, all the dragon bones were ground up for magic potions. I just made that up, but it sounds cool. And maybe that. I mean, there's a lot of things here that seem to maybe track and be able to say, we don't have a Bigfoot, but that doesn't mean there's no big feet, right? There's no Sasquatch just because we ain't found one yet. But I think dragons kind of stick into the same. And there's a theory regarding dragons and why we haven't found them, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. I don't want to blow all the great stuff right up front, but there's a lot of reasons to think maybe, and I think maybe's pretty solid assessment.
Yeah, and again, for me, I subscribe to a very optimistic point of view concerning dragons. I mean, if again, you don't want to challenge the natural world and what it's capable of giving us. Again, we've kind of discussed this several times on your show already. Just the planetary mysticism that comes with living on Earth, and all these things that we think that we know so much about, but then we find out we know far too little about certain things. And I think dragons may be one of them. And it's kind of great you brought up Game of Thrones, because even in the show, Daenerys and her entire arc was that, that everybody knew about the dragons, but oh no, they've been gone forever. Nobody's seen a dragon in X amount of years. And I mean, sometimes, what's that old saying goes, life imitates art or something like that, where it's like, maybe there are parallels to our reality. That's how it was, after a certain point in time, they kind of went out of favor. Dragons disappeared, but they were around at some point. And it's kind of great that you kind of touched on the Game of Thrones stuff, because that's exactly what it reminded me of. It's like they were here, now they're gone, and then people speculated about them.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's like we dig up things all the time. Who knows what we'll dig up in the future, and maybe you might actually find scientific proof that shows that there were dragon creatures around and they weren't dinosaurs. That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing. We're out of time, my friend. Nick in California, always a pleasure. Thank you for calling. Thank you for listening. Have a fantastic night.
You too, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Great take. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More about the Dragonologist, which is us, by the way, and Dragons at the Gate when we return. Sorry to cut you off, Nick. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're talking about dragons. That's right, dragons. Do you think at any point in history they were ever actually real? Or, let's say they were, and do you think they commingled with modern people? Lots to think about. What about dragon symbolism? What about the House of the Dragon coming up in Game of Thrones? The prequel is actually coming out August 22nd. I don't know. What is going on with this? And like I said, it's interesting that I am a connoisseur of news cycles. And what that means is that I just pay close attention to what's going on in the zeitgeist. I used to think that it was just, like a hobby. Apparently, according to the Night Stalker, it's a skill, and he calls it synchromysticism, when you notice sort of a sea change in the zeitgeist itself regarding a particular thing. And, you get a huge release coming like Game of Thrones, and suddenly everything's about dragons in the news cycle. I know we got calls, I'll get to you guys in just a sec. Just a couple real quick ones, which kind of don't even make sense, right? Let's see, hold on. Let's see, here you go. Look at this. Speaking of unicorns, I promised a unicorn article. Check this out. This is from Axios.com, and this is from, this is from a year ago, so my bad on this. But I found this and was like, look, why the startup world needs to ditch unicorns for dragons, right? And I was like, wait, what? So this is kind of at the back end when I was finding all this stuff. But look, so a unicorn company is, right, $1 billion startup, right? And they're saying they need a new word, dragons. Dragons are bigger, stronger, more awe-inspiring than unicorns. They destroy whatever's in their path, and their own destruction is viewed as catastrophic. Anyway, there you go. So my bad, I got the date wrong on that. But there's a lot more. Links in the descriptions down below, and I'll talk about them as we go. But okay, so unicorns, dragons are bigger, they're scarier, right? All the rest of that stuff. But then there's Game of Thrones coming out. Again, August 22nd is called, I got the name up because I keep forgetting what it is. It's called House of the Dragon. And it's about the old Targaryens. And of course, the dragon eggs and that whole lore. If you guys are into Game of Thrones, you'll be kind of stoked about this, hopeful that it's not going to suck, because I'm always, every time something new comes out, I'm hopeful it's not going to suck, because, well, some things tend to suck from now and then, time to time, but there's been some good stuff too. So anyway, so what are your thoughts tonight? We're talking about this, right? Were dragons ever real? Number one. Number two, did they ever commingle with people? And then there's a lot more regarding this. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubleminds.org. Hang tight, Matt in Colorado. We had Joseph beat you to the line. Let's go to Joseph in Iowa. You're on Troubled Minds, my friend. How are you tonight?
Hey, I just seen this thing, right? It was just the other day on a live stream. It was about a guy named Max, and he got killed, and he had an experience, and he was trying to describe it, and he said dragons were like old souls that were stuck, and I was thinking maybe these dragons could have those abilities that you've talked about on past shows, because they've been stuck here so long, they just studied themselves so long.
That's interesting. I'd never heard that before. I love it. I love it. I love the theory.
And that would, and then through the past, they always put metaphors and stuff. How would you describe someone like a dragon? I don't know, back in the day, I really don't know how to really connect it, really. But to a metaphor, I don't know. That would be like a dragon. That sounds like something of war, catapults with fire or something. What would cause you to think someone's a dragon?
Yeah, it is interesting that when we say the term dragon, what does come to mind is fighting, is war, is catapults, is right, dragon fire and the fields ablaze, and right. I mean, I wonder, right? Is this the original UFO propaganda?
Yes.
Are we just about dragons instead?
So this guy, he was really obsessed with this thing, man. He was really obsessed with it, and he called it the gem. And he said it's a race to escape. And I was thinking maybe it's not a race, and it's more just a canvas to paint, And I don't know, I forgot where I was going. I had something to talk about, but then I just started going off on this.
That's okay. So you were talking about the
dragons. Oh yeah, I was
being trapped in the well, right?
Like the layers of like Earth.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna go off on like the layers of like the Earth and like how like there's so much stuff that there's probably in there that we could use, like from. I mean, what is oil made out of? I wonder, is oil made out of like people, like not people, but
they say dinosaurs. They say dinosaurs. Yeah.
Dinosaurs. Yeah. So they could tap into that oil supply for something else, I would think. Other than like fueling and pumping it into the air, they could tap into it for something else, I imagine.
Yeah. Hard to say. And so, okay, so regarding this though, in terms of the dragon itself, you think they were ever real?
I possibly, I mean, because we wipe out stuff that's a threat to us back in the day. Like we wiped out, that's like a known fact, like we would wipe out stuff. So, I mean, it could still be a thing, but just like birds used to be, they say, bigger or whatever, like dinosaurs. It could have like transformed into something else. I mean, we just discovered a flying squirrel that was like with fur on it. It was in the Himalayas or something like that. So who knows? It could be out there, like a lizard of some type.
Yeah, and there are a lot of theories again. Like there's a particular group of individuals that think that dragons are very real, and the reason we can't find them. I'll play the clip in a little bit, and we can kind of talk about that as we go. I'll play it as soon as you get off the. Actually, tell me if you can hear this. Can you hear this music? And if so, I think you can. I'm just going to play it. I'm going to play it. I'm going to click the thing. Here we go. So Matt can hear it too. And here we go. I'm playing this. This is a theory, and this was talked about on the Joe Rogan podcast. Listen to this.
So you like these kind of far out there ideas. How do you like this idea? There's a group of people that say that dragons were real, and I'll explain. Around the same time period in, China, South America, Africa, all these different Rome, all these places depicted people fighting dragons, right? And every dragon was slightly different, but it was all a giant scaly animal that could fly. The group that says this, they're saying the evidence is the reason there's no fossils of dragons is because they had bird bones and hollowish bones. They break down very easily and they don't fossilize. If there were lizards big enough to fly around and eat people, they didn't have bones that could fossilize. A small population of these giant flying lizards existed and encompassed all these different countries where they all depicted fighting dragons in their own way, and they were all killed off by, knights or whatever it is, and then didn't fossilize.
Bird bones, right? It tracks that.
Yeah, that.
Right? Go ahead on that.
Oh, So I think I said this in a pod in one of your shows before, and like maybe like when we first started coming out of, like, they say we come from the ocean almost, like in the beginning. Maybe when we first started coming out, there were those lizards that were already out, and we were like the first snack, and that's just put in our memory, our DNA memory from the beginning, because so many waves of us were wiped out before, even more than the Egyptians or any sacrificial thing can reproduce. We were already gone through this evolutionary cycle, like deep. We've overcome the dragons, and now it's just ourselves, I guess, that is going against ourselves at this point.
Yeah, I love it.
That's what that's got me thinking.
Yeah, totally. And so regarding this, then, in terms of, it doesn't seem like a stretch to me to say that that's the case. Like I said, when we first started, if dragons were rare, then, and especially if they were prized as, like Ronald added, maybe potion making out of their bones or something like this, right? You would expect that they would be, well, very difficult to come by, right? Because one, they were rare, so we just don't find them in the fossil record. Two, if we have this idea that they're bird bones and sort of disintegrate easily, then maybe. I'm going to give this a solid maybe at this point, because I just love the idea of dragons being in the world. Now, what else you got, my friend, regarding dragons? What do you know about the symbolism and what they mean, other than the war aspect? Have you heard of like the Eastern version of what dragons are, sort of the good luck and the rest of that?
No. I was watching this podcast the other day that kind of threw me off because the guy was talking about an experience that was exactly like mine. He said he went into a well and he saw a gem and was obsessed with the gem. And I was like, oh, that's that's obvious right there. That's like a dead giveaway, like of what, that's the same experience that I had, kind of. But like the way he took it in was different. He started like forming, like I was kind of more interested on what that means, like for, like I was kind of more interested in like what it means for other people and like how it affected them. Like I don't know. I feel like if dragons are tied to like humans, it's like a complicated thing, right? Or maybe it's not too complicated, and it's just layers and layers of evolution of some type.
Hard to say. That's why we talk about, hey man, that's why we drink the maybe juice. Who knows, man? Who knows? What else you got for us? That's
it. I don't know if have you heard of that guy? He's like Max something. He had a following. He was murdered, and he was like believed to be like an alien experiencer or something.
I want to say Max Egan. Is that right? Or I don't know.
I think it's like an S.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not ringing a bell. I don't. Maybe vaguely, and like it might pop up in my brain like an hour from now. But no, it doesn't. Right now, it's not registering.
Yeah, he had some interesting things to say about it. Like it was more like biblical, you know. Like you can tell he was into like mythology and stuff, but he was talking about dragons, and yeah, like I said earlier, like he said they were old souls who like couldn't get out, or basically something like that.
Gotcha. All right, cool. I'll have to check it out. Can you delve that video for me and drop it in the Discord? I'd appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I can link it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Joseph here. Thank you for the call. Thanks for the amazing takes as usual. He's got a YouTube channel called IO-Walks. Check it out. He's a musician. He does all kinds of great stuff over there. Links in the description down below. He does a live streaming and all kinds of things. I stopped in for a few, and he's a talented guy. I'll tell you that. Thanks for the call, Joseph. You're always a pleasure. Have a fantastic night, bro. Man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care. There we go. 702-957-1037. We're talking about the dragons. Any dragon. Do you think they ever existed? And again, is it, Joseph brought up a great point there. Is it just sort of a metaphorical situation with dragons? Or how do you want to take this? We can go with, I don't want to steal Matt's thunder because I kind of know what he's about to say, so I'm not going to do that. But we can take this in any direction you want. Is it metaphorical? Is it physical? Why do we not have, let's say, evidence of dragons in the, let's say, archaeological record? Were they pterosaurs? What's going on with this? 702-957-1037. Matt in Colorado, you're on Troubled Minds. What's up, brother? Thanks for being patient. Go right ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly, sir.
Oh, man, you stole my line because I was going to say that I'm not saying there were dragons, but there were dragons.
Right? Exactly, right? Hey, ancient astronaut theorists say yes. We can just roll with that. So we were kicking some ideas earlier. So Matt sent me a message earlier in the day and was like, hey, you know what the show's about? And I was like, I kind of think dragons. And he's like, oh, sweet. So he started digging a little bit, shooting me some ideas. So I didn't want to steal your ideas. I didn't even mention them yet. But go right ahead. What do you think about the questions? I know you got some notes and some questions, but then you got some hot takes. So go right ahead, sir. You're on Troubled Minds.
Yeah, well, number one, did they exist at some point? So I'm going to say a hard maybe here. I'm going to say a yes here, and for a couple reasons. One, because I'm morally and intellectually obligated, because I've used the point or the argument before about UFOs and their existence being documented over thousands of years by various cultures around the world in different countries, and said, were all these people just making stuff up? It's all folklore. Why would it be the same folklore around the world? No, I think people were recording what they were actually seeing. So I was making that point about UFOs. Well, the same thing applies to dragons. So I have to, be intellectually consistent and say, hey, here's something that we've got that same history. So I think they existed at some point, which, brings us to the question, okay, if they did exist, drinking a little maybe juice, what were they? And, your second question, did they exist when humans did exist? I think so. Even I found a couple Roman accounts of dragons existing. There's tons of accounts throughout history. So I think they were concurrent. And then, so this leaves us, Nick mentioned, are they of a supernatural nature? And that's tracking along with what I was thinking earlier today. And it's interesting that we have some of these things like UFO, Bigfoot, Skinwalker, and ghosts, and all these things that they seem to be maybe all coming from this something like a very close dimension, another dimension, another world, another, we could say, aspect of reality, invisible to our physical eyes aspect of reality, and manifesting here, incarnating here. We talked about UFOs kind of bleeping in and bleeping out of our dimension. They seem to like shoot off and disappear. Bigfoots are said to be able to cloak and disappear, and nobody finds their bodies, nobody finds their bones, but they're seen around the world in every country. And so what if dragons are in this same category, in this same thing that is going on here, where different, I don't know what to call them, entities, beings, energies, can manifest and create themselves, and they're sort of trans-dimensional, but once they get here, they're physical, and people did encounter them. They encountered the UFO, they encountered the Bigfoot, they encountered the dragons. So that's where it's got my mind going.
Yeah, I wonder. So we've talked about in the past, like the thought form, the tulpa, or even the egregore in like a larger societal capacity. But what about this? If, like you're describing, so maybe let's say that from the days of yonder, way past, right? Like this sort of folk tales come down, and we're creating these entities like the aliens, like you're describing. So maybe there are no aliens as we expect them to be. They appear as we expect them to be, but there's something else. And if that's the case, right, like this, the phenomena, as they call it, right, and it's doing that sort of that trickster spirit type stuff, it would actually manifest as we expect it to be. And it may in terms of, let's say, dragons or big feet or Sasquatch or whatever you want to call it, right, actually sort of mimic or mirror our folk tales or our mythologies. And yeah, I love the idea, man. I love the idea. Why not? Yeah. Right? Instead of as one thing, maybe, or instead of many things, maybe it's one thing, just kind of manifesting itself as what we expect it to be.
Right. And that's exactly what I was saying you earlier today. So, in the Arthurian times and the Roman times, the big belief was about dragons. So this thing, whatever it is, or beings, would manifest themselves or create themselves, or people would see it as, dragons. And to the Native American Indians, they would, believed in and saw, and it would manifest, present itself as a Bigfoot. And in today's modern culture, or going back 75 years, we're seeing UFOs. But what if all three of those things were actually the same thing? And it really is reflecting and projecting based what's on in our mind and what's our expectations, what's our belief systems, that sort of deal, right?
Yeah, it tracks to me. And so what we would be talking about in that capacity is not physical dragons, even though we're not ruling that out, of course, because it's drinking the maybe juice and all that. But it would be something that manifests sort of as we expect it to, like I described, and meaning that if it wants to be, let's say, strike fear in the hearts of us, it may appear as a dragon, right? And so I love it, man. I love the idea. When you shot at me earlier, I was like, yeah, why not, right? Why not? I mean, we're talking about mythological beasts, so why not? Definitely, why not? We got to about 2.5 minutes, man, so go right ahead. What else you got?
Yeah, and I think, they could be physical dragons, and they could be physical big feet. Is big feet a word, or is it big foot?
Let's go with Sasquatch, so we don't sound like noobs. How about that?
And they could be physical UFO craft, and that could still work with what we're talking about. That they can choose a form to manifest, but to manifest means to be made physical, to be made real, etc. And it's other people have had interactions with different beings that maybe you could throw angels in the same category, and different things of the spiritual realm. And there's people that have had interactions where the beings said, I appeared to you in the form that you wanted, in a form you would accept. And, I could have appeared in any form or manifested in any form. So, and the other thing is there could be multiple beings or things going on here, but those principles still may be at work.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why we drink some maybe juice and get together by dark of night and give each other phony names so they don't drag us away. Hey.
Well, hey, and if we, with the zeitgeist, and if thoughts a bit creative and these things work like that, if it's back in the mainstream culture and thoughts, we might start manifesting and creating dragons again.
Yeah, right. Hey, I'm ready for that. I'm ready. If we're gonna like bring the Game of Thrones back into the zeitgeist with the dragons, and hey, if something's gonna come out of the sky and try and terrify us, I want it to be dragons, man. I got to tell you, I'll be a little disappointed if it's UFOs and like the invasion begins. The Project Bluebeam begins with UFOs. I want dragons. Can we agree that we want dragons?
That is so. Yeah, I'm just tracking with you. It's like hundreds of dragons invading the Earth would be so much better than hundreds of UFOs, man.
Yeah, it's not even close. It's not even close. Because I'll tell you what, I'll grab like the closest broomstick and I'll just go running out there to sacrifice myself to say, one day, cross your fingers, when I'm in a better place, I went down going after a dragon. Matt, you're the best. Appreciate it. Matt has a book. Check it out. Links in the description down below. It is called, oh my goodness, I didn't have the thing ready. I usually do. It's called this. Escape the Matrix and Explore Reality. Yep. A guide to radical transformation and empowerment. Links in the description. He's got some coupon codes down there for some free copies. Thank you, Matt, for being patient with us tonight. Thanks for the amazing takes as always. You're the best. Have a fantastic night, brother.
All right, you're the best. Have a good show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. There you go. So we're talking about dragons tonight, guys. And the thing is, I don't know. As you know, this is not about any level of truth. I'll handle my reality, you handle yours. And then, my only thing is I just don't want us to, let's say just hate each other. That's all. Hey, let's talk about amazing mythology and folklore. Let's talk about, I don't know, conspiracies and, well, let's say great stories. And let's just not hate each other. That's what this is all about. Love to hear your thoughts on dragons tonight. What do you believe? We're calling ourselves a collective Dragonologist, which means a dragon expert. Do you think they ever existed? 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More Dragonologists, that's us, and Dragons at the Gate, and your calls when we return. Be right back. Don't go anywhere.
listening to Troubled Minds. Join us as we discuss an upside-down world that nobody seems to notice.
We are talking about the alien abduction phenomenon.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing fantastic. And through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
So all right. So maybe,
and they also feel them planting or receiving memories, or ideas, or images.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth.
Page.
I hear you, buddy. One second. Asking questions of you.
Sorry.
That's all right. We'll still play the thing.
Just
all right.
the microphone.
Perfect test. Well, welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on Rockfit, YouTube, D-Live, and Twitter. We're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're talking about dragons. Do you believe dragons were ever real? Ever? And if so, were they concurrent with people? All right? And then, if that's the case, again, we're going down sort of the maybe juice rabbit hole of if then, sort of that logic tree. And I know we're on a limb. We're probably too much weight on a tiny limb, and that's fine by me because that's what drinking the maybe juice is all about. But it goes like this, right? So if they existed, how come we don't have, like we got the T-Rex bones we're told we got the T-Rex bones in the museums, right? So where are the dragon bones? So I'd love to hear your thoughts tonight. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. And let's go to Mike in Colorado. Algorithm, what's up? You're on Troubled Minds. Sorry about the weird timing.
Strange.
What's up, bro?
All good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
No, I'm doing well. I love the dragon metaphors that I've seen in movies and books in history, but I do have a question, and I don't even want to ask it. I don't even want to talk about this because I love the premise, but from what we know about fire, it requires combustion. And if there were dragons, they must have been exhaling oxygen, which would kind of make them plants.
No. That's not. No. Not necessarily. It means they could.
Okay, well, let's go.
They could take oxygen in their nose and then like combust it somehow with some sort of chemical in their throat and then spit it out. It doesn't have to.
Yeah, I know. This is totally why I didn't want to say that.
Why? Because that doesn't work? Explain.
No, it might work. I mean, it might work, but it almost debunks the lung thing as we know it. If we inhale all the air and we get oxygen for our blood, there's nitrogen and a lot of stuff in the air. What we exhale is carbon dioxide mostly and nitrogen. They have to probably exhale oxygen in order to get fire out of the mouth, right?
Yeah, maybe. We're so the thing too regarding dragons. I think one of the interesting things in particular is that they are said to be fire breathing, but there are also a lot of dragons that don't breathe fire. So again, there's like the water drakes and there's all the rest of this stuff too. Again, back to Nessie, Ogopogo, and the stuff that Nick brought up when we first started the show. There's that out there too. So I don't know. I guess you could say kind of like maybe let's say that maybe not all dragons are fire breathing. Let's go Dungeons and Dragons for a moment, they say that the blue dragons breathe lightning, right? And like the red dragons breathe fire, and like the white dragons breathe like some sort of like cone of cold. So maybe it is. Maybe it's magic, and that stuff doesn't matter. I don't know. Just throwing it out there as like super, let's say, a keg of maybe juice. But go right ahead, sir.
Glad you did. I'm totally glad you did, because that is awesome. And I wasn't trying to be a thing to debunk a thing.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's all part of a conversation, man. No need to apologize. Your thoughts are your thoughts. Let's talk about them. Go ahead.
Part of why I want to click in tonight, I haven't been around for a while. I've been super busy at work, but I did want to say that for people who have been watching you, and new people, a ton of new people since the last time I was here, which is fantastic. The people that are watching you, I would say that the woo that you bring every single night, 4 days a week plus the extra one, you are filling the shoes of a person that I really tremendously care about who has passed. I'm not going to say his name, but your presentation every single night, be it dragons or aliens or government or whatever, you're working so hard to do this. And I just wanted to come in and say hi, and it's been a long time, and I want to support you, and I want everybody to support you, because you really do kill it night in, night out. I listen back a lot. I don't get to participate as much. And the whole oxygen thing, it was just something to start the conversation. I don't really think that. I do believe they were energetic beings in this place who did fly and were dragon-like, and who shaped and created some of our folklore and put humanity into a trajectory of belief or non-belief. And when it comes down to how we operate in this world, it's basically all about what we believe or what we think we believe, and that's how we show up. So if you believe a thing is a thing, you're going to show up with that. And if you don't believe it, then it's just another part of the thing. But what you're trying to do every single night, I applaud, and I totally support, and I hope everybody else does, because what you guys are doing over here is fantastic. We should have like 5,000 people watching in all the platforms, Rockfin, YouTube, your website. You're killing it. And I don't know, I know as a creator, we don't always think we're doing something, but you're doing it. So that's the reason I wanted to call. The oxygen thing was just a side note, a nonsense thing in my head. So. No,
I don't know if it's nonsense. First off, thank you so much for all the compliments. By the way, Mike here, Algorithm, he's got a YouTube channel as well, doing great work over there. Go check it out. Links in the description down below. But no, so the thing is regarding the plant, I love the idea, right? And I think that's the thing. That's why you're kind of throwing out the ideas and just considering all the possibilities. I don't think it's silly at all. I think it's like, okay, well, if dragons were real, and if they did breathe fire, let's say in a physical presence sense, how would that work with the world we know, right? It seems to track, at least in terms of, right, oxygen and fire, carbon dioxide puts it out. So we breathe in the oxygen, we blow out the carbon dioxide, so it tracks. What if they were a plant-like being? It would actually, by the way, explain why or why not. Bones. Yeah, why we can't find their remains, and why they were able to easily fly, because they're super light, right?
Totally. And I think as you said that, I'm just picturing these leafish structure, some plant-based thing that is so giant that it terrified everybody, which would terrify me if I walked outside tomorrow and I saw this giant leafy kind of plant-based structure that could breathe fire. Oh my gosh, I'd run for the hills.
Yeah, hell yeah. And not only that, interesting that we not too long ago we did a space horror drama with the James Webb Telescope, and just sort of like super keg of maybe juice there. And there was a Reddit, a no sleeps from the subreddit, where they write horror stories, and they were talking about a plant that was so large it was like light years long that was eating suns. So hey, why not? Hey, why not, man? Why not? You're in the right place. You're in the right place,
my friend. Always a pleasure. Thank you for taking my call. Carry on. You got a lot of people coming. I can't thank you enough for what you do.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you, Algo. Mike in Colorado, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the phone call. Always a pleasure, bro.
Hey.
Good night. There you go. Give Mike a follow. He's got a YouTube channel called Algorithm, just like it sounds. Links in the description down below. And good stuff. Hey, and that's the thing, right? So I hadn't considered, why not? Like we talked about maybe from that one clip, that was from the Joe Rogan show, where they were talking about how maybe dragons, the reason we can't find them is because they had hollow bones and they deteriorated quickly and easily. And so we, in the, let's say, fossil record, we could not really easily identify, even if they were abundant, right? Because they would just disappear. So I mean, there's that, right? But I hadn't considered that maybe there were plants. Why not? And that's why we get together and just kind of toss these ideas out. What do you guys think? We're talking about dragons. We're talking about dragons tonight. Do you think they ever existed? And if so, do you think they were concurrent with people at any point in history? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. You can also click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Let's go to, looks like, I think we're APOC, right? APOC was first? Am I right?
Yeah, but if Matt wants to go, that's fine.
APOC was first. You're on Troubled Minds, APOC in Oklahoma. How are you? What's going on?
Okay. So I've got a story, a dream, and a theory for you.
Okay, shoot. Fire. Go right ahead.
Okay, the story is me and my stepbrother were out trying to make a raft or a bridge across my mom's property's creek. And as we're standing there trying to ponder the possibilities because our wood is sinking, we have this shadow fly over our heads. We look up, and we look up and we see this huge flying creature that has no wings. Its tail looks like a kite's tail, or it's like a thin tail with a kite tip, that kind of your typical kite shape. And it flew into the field across the creek. There's a whole big part of the story that I'll just cut out because I think I've told it once before on the show. And it was literally a pterodactyl. It looked just like a pterodactyl. Later on, when I started looking this stuff up when the internet came on, I found out that many people that around that same year in Texas, actually across sort of the mid area of America and down through Oklahoma and Texas, had sightings of these things, including like a whole schoolyard full of kids. So it's interesting, yeah. So in some respect, I mean, you brought up pterodactyls, so I couldn't not come on and tell that story. So
why not? Hey, why not? And so, okay, so then just with that said, real quick, I know you got some more to get to, but so what would be the difference between, let's say, a pterodactyl and a dragon? Like physiologically, kind of not a lot, right?
Not a lot. Except I don't think they had scales. And they did have beaks. So, excuse me. So technically, sorry, I'm having throat problems tonight. Your dragon has like sort of a dog nose in mythology, sort of a longer or a different kind of lizard nose, I guess. So yeah, there would be some differences, but again, it's it would be very similar. It flies. It doesn't have feathers or anything like that. Its tail was long and kind of spindly, and yeah, so pretty interesting, and I'm sure that we can adapt that to the smaller dragons, right? I think people might have seen those and said dragon. That's one possibility.
Yeah, I think so. Interestingly, too, the thing about dragons in particular, right? We even in modern days we have the Komodo dragon, right? Which is very very poisonous, like a kind of a large thing. It's a nasty thing. You don't want to come into contact with this thing. They could kill you. They're predators. They'll eat you. They'll eat people, right? And so you're like, wait, so there's that. But then, if we're talking about dragons, small and large, let's say, for instance, a long time ago, they were like giant ostriches, huge birds, right? Like, I mean, things used to be a ton bigger, like forever ago. And, the evolution, that whole bit, everything got smaller. So, hey, why not? Why not? Maybe the missing link is not just the missing link of people. Maybe it's the dragon missing link. Ooh, boom.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, the dragons, you of course, I'm sure that Kelly will maybe call in later and talk about this, but there are depictions of dinosaurs and humans on walls of different ancient buildings and stuff like that. So it's very, I think, likely that there were leftover dinosaurs and especially since we're finding out that human beings, or they're finding out that human beings have been on the planet for a lot longer than they think. I think it expands like every 2 or 3, 5 years or so. They say they push it back some, so interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Just flashing some articles here about like the last week how a dragon ends up in the headlines, super crazy. So what else you got? So do you think they're real? Or go ahead and finish your list there, and then we'll get to that.
Sure. So I had a dream, and this gets sort of Matt-like here, and Matt did bring up something that I was going to also bring up in my theory in a minute, but on the dream thing, I bring this into it because of the metaphor, the dragon metaphor, right? So I had a dream where I was in a school. I'm going to shorten this a lot to. In a dream where I was in the back of a schoolroom. The back of a schoolroom had this huge cage behind it that had an opening before the cage, and the cage went down into like infinity and up into infinity. And I needed to get out of the schoolroom, so I got on the cage somehow. And this other girl was doing the same thing, and this dragon comes up, flies out of the darkness up towards the cage and growls, and we both drop. We both are scared, and we drop down to the next level. And it does it again, and it does it again, and on the third time, I just hold on, and I'm like, nope, you're not going to scare me this time. And when that happened, he laughed. The dragon laughed and floated off. And so I looked back behind me, and there was this other room, but there were a lot of people there, and they were trying to survive. They were trying to get out of the building. It became, rather than a school, ironically, a jail. And so I jump off, and I'm right. And so I jump off, and I'm trying to help these people, get their minds straight so we can figure out a way out. And they're just locked in. They're locked into their own way. They can't, they can't do anything but what they're doing. And it just gets a little frustrating. And this dragon keeps like floating by and sort of terrorizing everybody. And at this point, I'm not scared of the dragon. So eventually I get tired of the people because they're not doing anything. And I just, the dragon floats over. And by the way, it didn't fly, it floated. It had wings, but it floated. And so it kind of lands on the ground. And I just run over to it, jump on the dragon, and the dragon takes me to this other dimension. And so this other dimension drops me in the hallway of a school. The dragon's gone, but this guy walks by, and I look at him, and I know he's the dragon, but it's not just him that is the dragon. The dragon is all around, and what the dragon represented was that transition between fear and empowerment, and that dragon also represented the things that we think are wrong or bad or terrible or whatever, our ideas of what is one thing or another thing. And it's about, the metaphor for me was about facing those things, looking at them and taking them head on, right? I didn't get the metaphor of this for years and years and years, but that dream just kept coming back to me. And I'm like, okay, I started to make all these connections. So that is an interesting thing in relationship to the dragon tonight, in relationship to a metaphor. And then I have the theory.
Okay, let's hear the theory.
Okay, the theory is, I do think that the dragon came from seeing these amphibians, these dinosaurs, these huge walking, flying creatures. And I also think, because there have been so many, and I'm sorry to bring up UFOs again, but I'm going to do it. There have also been these huge flying UFOs that look like dragons that people have seen all over the world. That a lot of them were coming out back in 2009 to 2012. And just lots of these videos of these flying creatures that looked like dragons. They weren't that clear, but they looked literally like they were moving like dragons in the sky. And you put that together with the NASA UFOs and the tether incident with the flying energy discs and the NASA images where it looks like there are orbs feeding off the electricity of the thunderstorms of Earth when they're occurring. And you go back to the possibility that there are creatures that traverse space and the planet living in a different way. And if they feed off energy, if they use energy as a resource, potentially they are energetic creatures more so than we are. Every creature is energetic, but what if they literally are somewhat, kind of like Matt said, energy creatures, but not necessarily in a different dimension, but living in our own and maybe in between a little bit. But maybe this is how the dragons, or some of them, or a lot of them, got wiped out, because if we had an X-flare and they are energetic creatures, and your thing about the lightning, dang it, Mike, you brought up the lightning dragons, which I did not know about in D&D, which that's so freaking cool, because that's what I was going to say.
That's
what
a blue
if
dragon.
Fire?
That's a blue dragon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. That's so cool. So what if the dragon's fire was electricity, and when it hit the ground, it caught things on fire, right? Because lightning or electricity, whatever, will catch stuff on fire. I'm trying not to cuss because it's not the third hour. Okay, anyway, so what if a huge X-flare came, and that was part of possibly what took out some of the dinosaurs and stuff like that, and boom, all of these electrical beings that shared our space and space potentially got zapped. And that's why we don't find any residual, because they were energetic beings, possibly vibrating at a higher rate of speed than we do.
Yeah, sort of out of phase as such, right?
Not really. Yeah, yes, in a way it would seem so, but I don't think so, because electricity is visible. We are, we use it. It's a type of okay. So it would basically have a higher vibration. It would be more energetic, and yet still in this phase, right? Electricity is in this phase. It's except that it's not stable necessarily. So if it were a stable form of electricity or a type of being that stabilized electricity, then sure, it could be in this quote-unquote realm or this frequency or this
APOC, we're out of time. You want to hang on after the break?
Sure thing.
All right, stay right there. A good friend of mine, APOC, we're going to be right back. We're talking about dragons. Do you believe they're real? 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. That's digital radio. What's up, guys? A quick shout-out to the Fringe friends out there. We got, who did I miss? Catalina. What's up, Lacey? I see you guys. What's happening? I think I got everybody else. S Magician. What's up, Mike? All right, look, we're talking about dragons tonight, and the question is this. Do you think at any point in history ever dragons were actually real? How come they're literally in almost every mythology the world over, every single continent? The details may differ, but they say dragons existed. Well, fake? Otherwise, what do you think? 702-957 1037. That's 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org and we'll put you on the show. Let's do it. Let's roll this. Let's get back to APOC. Thanks for being patient. So you were talking about this sort of maybe not interdimensional situation with dragons, but sort of a phase. Maybe not out of phase, not in phase. Please continue. And then we got Matt behind you, so we got to be brief with you so you don't gobble up all the time. But go ahead, APOC. Welcome back.
It would be like a stabilized form of energy. So just like a different frequency, yes, but still within this sphere. You know, if we can see it, if we can witness it, if we can whatever. And I think if there are ghosts and spirits and other beings, then when we can see them, then they're somehow within our frequency, right, in some respects. And so they might have been able to move in and out. They might have been able to shift different frequencies, or maybe use electromagnetism to shift color spectrums, which would be a frequency basically, and then could disappear or go into another space where other things also resonate at that frequency, which you can call other dimensions, sure, or other, whatever. But yeah, I mean, they could have had that capability. But what if the dinosaurs and them, were here at the same time, and that's where sort of a merger happened in respect to our mythology or our history in relationship to dragons. They saw the ones, the electrical ones, I guess, and they saw the ones on the ground, and they adapted that to the other. Although I will say, Mike, those quote-unquote UFOs that looked like dragons really looked like dragons, like snakes in the sky that were just floating. Right? And
I actually saw some of that. I saw some of that on, what was I doing? I was just kind of digging through some stuff tonight before the show, looking at some videos and whatnot. And there are, so some of these, and again, these videos may be fake, just grain of salt, the rest of that stuff. But people have described in the past as well. And then you get some of these YouTube videos where they have like this sort of coiled serpent, like the Ouroboros, right? The serpent eating his tail, which again, right, that whole circular thing. Yes. So I mean, that becomes a whole nother can of worms, right? But I do love that you brought in the fact that we're talking, look, if we have things in the sky that are unidentified and they may be some sort of electrical something, right? Whether it's in phase or out of phase or some combination of the three. I don't know. I love it. I love that you brought the UFOs into this. Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Right. Well, I mean, back to the coiled snake just quickly. Yes, it goes right back into the Kundalini being energy, right? Energy that coils up from the spine. If that is in relationship to the other, then I think it would be quite interesting. And I had thought about that also before I called. because it seems like it very easily could be connected to the Kundalini coiled snake metaphor. So yeah.
Why not? Hey, why not? You still on the road? Did you literally pull over to call us?
Well, yeah, but I pull over several times on the way. I like pull over to ride. I pull over to yeah.
Okay.
I'm on my own time. Are you kidding me? I'm going to do what I want to do. So
that's cool. I was going to say thank you for pulling over and being safe and calling us and doing the thing. And thanks for sharing your amazing ideas. You do the best, APOC. Anything else? Anything else while we got you on?
Well, no. I think that's it. Those were just some points I thought might inspire more thought. So.
Amen to that. APOC here in Oklahoma, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show. She's got a podcast. The link's in the description. It's called Apocalypse Tau. That's right. Not like it sounds. Oh. Not now. Apocalypse Tau. There you go. Please give her a follow.
I do have.
Wait, you got one coming?
One more quick thing.
Okay.
One more quick thing.
Okay. Quick.
I did upload my first YouTube video, and it's of cloud busting. So anyone who wants to take a look, go check out me cloud busting on my property. So there you go. There you go.
Let's go bust them clouds. APOC, you're the best. Travel safe. Be safe. We'll catch you soon. Have a fantastic night. Thanks for the call. Bye. Thank you. 702-957-1037. Do you think dragons are real, right? At any point in history, and not only that, was it concurrent with people? That's the question tonight. And if so, how come we don't have, let's say, the fossils to back it up, right? So I'm going to play this real quick, and then we'll go to Matt. Bear with me, 50 more seconds, Matt, and thanks for being patient. Listen to this, and then we'll get to Matt.
So you like these kind of far out there ideas. How do you like this idea? There's a group of people that say that dragons were real, and I'll explain. Around the same time period in, China, South America, Africa, all these different Rome, all these places depicted people fighting dragons, right? And every dragon was slightly different, but it was all a giant scaly animal that could fly. The group that says this, they're saying the evidence is the reason there's no fossils of dragons is because they had bird bones and hollowish bones. They break down very easily and they don't fossilize. If there were lizards big enough to fly around and eat people, they didn't have bones that could fossilize. A small population of these giant flying lizards existed and encompassed all these different countries where they all depicted fighting dragons in their own way, and they were all killed off by, knights or whatever it is, and then didn't fossilize.
There we go. Let's go to Matt in California. Thanks for being patient with me and us. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you tonight, my man?
Good. How's it going, Mike?
Doing good, man. Just talking about dragons, because, like I said, if we aren't, who's going to? Tell me you know something about dragons.
Well, I think you can't have a dragon show without talking about one of my favorite dragons, which is Smaug from The Hobbit. And when J.R. Tolkien wrote The Hobbit, he described Smaug. It was something different to me. He didn't describe him as a regular dragon, did he? He kind of described him as, he said he was like a fox. He said he was like furry and he had fur. And so to me, that kind of adds like a whole nother level, like another type of dragon, that there could be different types of dragons out there. So that's just the different types of dragons.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so interestingly, right, we're coming into this new version of, let's say, the modern version of paleontology, which means that they're saying that more and more they believe that there were feathers on the dinosaurs. I think that's a fantastic observation you make, because we're talking about dragons, the worm, the Wyrm of old, and who knows, right? Maybe fur was the thing and not feathers, especially and I love the way, by the way, that you pronounce Smaug, because that's the way you're supposed to say it. It's actually I got the thing up here. I can't remember what it means to dig or to. So I'll pull it up in a sec. So I came across that tonight as well, looking into the dragons. But I agree with you. Smaug the dragon from The Hobbit and the rest of that is probably, in modern times, the dragon, right? I mean, we're talking about very Dungeons and Dragons, super intelligent. He's smelling the Bilbo in the cave, and he's like, I don't remember smelling your kind before. So he's got like this ultra memory and this ultra sense of smell, these ultra senses, and he's, what's he say? My claws are like spears, and my breath death. Right? I mean, hey, it's super good. I'm glad you brought him up. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Well, in the old cartoon, they showed him as a fox, and I was kind of disappointed. Of course, the new movie, the Peter Jackson movies, I was like, that's going to be the thing they mess up. They're not going to make him right, and they did. They made him in the movies. They made him like he's scales, like a regular dragon. They didn't make him. To me, that's not Smaug. He was like a fox dragon.
Yeah, exactly, and it had the fur. Exactly right. And not only that, so the interesting part about that particular dragon from The Hobbit, even in The Hobbit, right? We're talking about Middle Earth, and we're talking about the old times. Smaug, in that sense, was still the last dragon. He was still the last of the dragons in Middle Earth. And so even then, like we're talking about, Gandalf is still a wizard walking around, and they say Middle Earth is based on Middle Europe and all the rest of this, right? So it's not another planet, it's another time on our planet. And even then, in ancient times, this dragon was still the last dragon, right? So I don't know. I think there's a lot that kind of tracks here.
Yeah, one more thing. So you'll laugh. I've never seen a Harry Potter movie or read the Harry Potter books, but in that world, they put magical cores in their wands from like magical creatures. And one of the things they use in that movie is they use dragon heart strings to put as a magical core in the middle of their wand to like increase the power. And to me, that's kind of blasphemous, because if you have a dragon heart string in your wand, that means you killed the dragon, because that's a fatal piece of the dragon. So I wouldn't do that. It's kind of disrespectful to me. But when we talk about wand lore and making wands, my belief is that maybe these dragons, maybe they exist in like a different realm, like an astral realm or a different dimension, and certain people can cross over into that dimension, and when they come back, they tell those stories. That's where these dragon stories came from. And so one of the things in wand making is that you could do to put a magical core into your wand. You can do your shamanic journey and travel to the astral realm. And if you go to find a dragon, find a dragon's cave, the dragon's coiled up, asleep in his cave around the gold. You don't want to wake up the dragon. But what you can do is you realize that dragons they're like snakes. They shed their skin. So if you walk around in a dragon's lair, you might find on the ground a piece of a scale that he had shedded. You take that scale, you take it back, and this is energy because it's in the astral realm. You take that back, you shave it down to the shape that you want into your wand. You place the energy into your wand, and then you cap it off, like have the wand hollowed out and cap it off. And the magic will increase. So like if you want to do like love magic, you would want like a red dragon scale. If you want to do healing magic, you want a blue dragon scale. If you want to do protection magic, you'd have a black dragon scale, so on and so forth. And there's also other magic cores you can get from the astral realm, like phoenix feathers, a unicorn horn. They have like hippocampus, stuff like that, griffin feathers, things like this that you could put into your wand. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So interestingly then, so we're talking about sort of the astral realm here, which begs the question. APOC brought up sort of the idea of like electric dragons in the sky, maybe akin to UFOs. We talked about earlier with Matt in Colorado that maybe these are possibly trickster spirits and we're manifesting them on what we expect to see. What about these, let's say, dragon entities as astral, let's say, I don't know, astral entities, like you said, what did you say, hippogriff? I think is what you said there. I mean, maybe, right? I think that's part that you got to lock this into the idea of, well, we can't see everything that exists, and I think that's for damn certain, isn't it?
Yeah, I just think that's just my theory of where these stories come from, where we have, because these dragon legends are all over. But yeah, I think that's just where it comes from. They had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether they were physical dragons on Earth, I want to say yes, but I don't know. But I think that might be the stories where the stories came from somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. And so if you got to give it like a determination of real or not, what would you say regarding dragons? You think at some point they were real, or even still are? What's your belief there?
Yeah, I think I believe them because, like I said, these stories, someone had to encounter them to like where they come up with it. Just kind of like I was talking about J.R. Tolkien come up with a fox dragon. Like, where did he come up with that? You know?
The ancient times, man. It's folklore and mythology is a hell of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm gonna go. Thanks, Mike.
You're the best. Matt in California, appreciate it very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chipping in. Hey, look, we're still talking about dragons here. What do you think this is? Do you think they're real? I'm calling it the Dragonologist tonight, which, by the way, the Dragonologist is a real term, and it's what you call somebody who studies dragons. And tonight, collectively, we are the Dragonologist. What do you think? At some point in history, were dragons actually real? What about the pterosaurs, the pterodactyls, this type of thing? Again, physiologically speaking, it's not really that far different. We had Algorithm talk about maybe what if dragons were plants. We talked about that Joe Rogan clip where somebody was one of his guests was saying that, hey, the reason we don't have dragon fossils is because maybe they were flying reptiles with bird bones, hollow bones, and they've disintegrated over time. Who knows what the hell's going on here? We got a few more minutes left for you. 702-957-1037. Let's go to Daryl in New York. What's up, Daryl? How you been? You're on Troubled Minds. What's going on tonight?
Oh my God. This is so interesting. I got a few comments. Just APOC and I were thinking about the same thing at the same time today, and I'm just going to touch on some of what she talked about. First of all, about the dimension thing, and also perhaps, all right, I'm into this a little bit, a different way. I'm thinking that, maybe like griffins, unicorns, cyclops, these are all legends, or were monsters of our past. Perhaps they were genetically modified, by the elite at the time to cause fear in the public to make them more obedient. I don't know. Maybe that's just history, perhaps repeating itself, and maybe it got so out of hand that they had to do a reset because the monsters were not what they were hoping them to be. Like in ancient Egypt, they were saying that they found the bones, usually in the mummies' tombs and everything's mummified, except they found these bones that were smashed to bits and pieces. And they couldn't figure out why were those bones in the same tomb. Why did they find those bones smashed instead of mummified? What was wrong with the bones of whatever creature that was that didn't deserve mummification? And they felt that was because as soon as those elites left on their spaceships, they wanted to destroy them because they were monsters, and they didn't want them to reproduce or to continue. Whatever was left over, they just destroyed their bones. So they wouldn't go into an afterlife, for example. And also I wanted to mention spaceships that people have flown in, modern spaceships or maybe ancient spaceships. They've been told to have an ectoskeleton. So maybe they had actually done some technology that made a flying, machine with some kind of an organic material that looked like some kind of a dragon. Maybe they made it in the shape of a lizard just for effect. But when they saw, the rocket fuel coming out of its, back or maybe out of its mouth, whatever, they assumed it was a fire-breathing dragon rather than maybe a rocket ship, that could fly. And people have described that, that they've flown in, with their minds. They would use their minds to fly their aircraft. People that have been abducted. I don't know if you've ever heard that story. It's pretty common when people talk about that they were taken on aircrafts. I mean, I'm not saying it's true or not, but I've heard this story so many times from so many different sources. So it's kind of weird that they all describe that the ship had like a symbiotic relationship with the human, and that they could fly with their minds, and that they also had an ectoskeleton. So that it was a mechanical, organic machine. And even David Adair, when he went into Area 51, described something very similar. When he touched the machine, it actually lit up, and he had like a feeling it was like an organic thing. Anyway, I'm just saying that. And the other thing between, we see things going in and out of the sun. We see things going into volcanoes, when they were erupting. Like, we see things flying in them, and they're not explicable. And what are those things? Like, how can they tolerate the heat? Dragons probably had an incredible tolerance for heat if they had some kind of chemical, maybe genetically modified reaction to something that wasn't agreeable, but that made them tolerate heat, and it made them breathe fire. I don't know. It was some kind of chemical alteration, maybe due to a solar flare or something like that. But somehow they get energy from, whatever. They get some kind of energy that can make them go through the sun or go through a volcano. And the one more thing, the only difference between like paranormal and normal is just our understanding of it. As soon as we say, oh, that's the reason that's that. Like these orb things and these things that disappear, they might have a very symbological explanation, including the things that could fly in and out of the sun. Maybe as soon as we leave the planet, we are in another dimension. As soon as we go into the planet, we are in another dimension. Maybe other dimensions aren't that far away from our dimension. It might not be that complicated. And maybe they're still around. Or they just there's transgender, there's transdimensionals. We might be living in a very strange world soon enough. Who knows? If you don't want to live in this one, I'm going to go into get a trans world, procedure. I'm just going to go to the hospital, and I'm going to live in that world. I don't like this one anymore. I'm going to I'm going to just hang out with my dragon friends. Anyway,
you're killing me, Daryl. Okay, look. Now, interestingly, you brought up a lot of great points there. So in terms of like what APOC was saying, that you were piggybacking on, and I agree there. Like, there's like old tales of like flying carpets, all right, and like all the rest of the stuff. And like you said, maybe that let's say a ship or something to that effect, even an astral traveler, or whatever, could take the guise of a dragon. And look, by the way, the Vikings did that. They created these dragon boats, and they put these big dragon heads on the front of their boats to make their boats look like these like fearsome dragon creatures docking when they were like raiding up and down the European coast, right? If you're chilling, you're like fishing on, you're just fishing on the you're like eating some oysters or whatever, just hanging out, and you're like, when you see like 22 of these dragon like looking boats coming towards you, if you don't shit your pants, I don't know what you're doing, right? Oh, is that crap your pants? Oops. Right, but I mean, come on now, like that. Maybe that's the game. It's a psychological warfare thing, eh?
Yep. It was to psych them out. It was to scare them to death, and then they would be obedient, and then they'd rewrite history, and then the only history that counts is the ones who win, and the ones who lost is gone. I think it's being rewritten all the time. I don't know how some things remain, myth, and some things remain fact. I don't know. I mean, how things are changing as we live. It's the Mandela effect. I mean, it could be due to that. And why do things like, there's feathers, wings, hair, fur, scales. How come we all have different stuff? We have barbs on, pricks on, on certain cactuses. I mean, we have all these different ways to protect ourselves. The scale, I don't know. It's just how come some things can fly, some things can swim, some things can live underwater, some things can live in the air? How come things crawl and slither? How can we walk? There's so many different life forms, and then there's so many different life forms we don't understand, that we haven't even, they don't leave fossils, they just don't. Maybe those orbs, that there's some kind of living life form that they live in the atmosphere. That's their life, they live and they eat clouds. They like to eat chemtrails, whatever they like to eat. That's delicious. What do dragons like to eat? I think they like to eat babies or children or women. I don't know. Maybe we taste better.
Yeah, there's actually I was going to make this joke because it was just the jokes make themselves. You said women, so researching the dragon stuff, it turns out that they like young women.
Yeah.
I was like, That's super suspicious. Nobody likes young women.
That's right. They're all male dragons. So what about the
Daryl, we're out of time. If you want to hang on, we'll go a little bit long. So stay right there. Daryl here, a good friend of mine, Daryl in New York, has a YouTube channel. Check it out. It says follow Daryl here. Links in the description down below. She's got she sings in English and French. She's got talks about Morgellons and some other paranormal stuff on her channel. Please give her a follow. And look, as we finish, there's no answers here. We're just having a conversation. And it goes like this. If you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop, Lighting the Void. If you're listening to us on any other podcast, any other platform, including the podcast feed, stay tuned for a third-ish hour of Troubled Minds. And as we finish, it goes like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. All right, Daryl, you're back. Sorry about that. Had to get off the radio, do the thing. Got the time constraints. All right, so what else you got? Oh, killed it. Music is killed. We're good. Go right ahead. So we're gonna do let's say a third-ish hour intro, like not the full third hour. So if we still have time for you if you got a phone call for us, if you got some takes on this. We're talking about dragons tonight. Are they real? What is this? Why does every culture in the world tell tales of dragons? And do you think it's more complicated than we're making it, or even less complicated? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Go ahead, Daryl. Sorry about that. If you got anything else, we got time for you. Go right ahead.
About what APOC was talking about also, I think we have been around a lot longer than, that science is accepting. I mean, it wasn't, the Bible's version that was made like 6,000 years ago. I think there's proof. I think they found our human footsteps right next to the dragons, not dragons, dinosaurs or dragons, we don't know, how do we know if they breathed fire, based on a fossil? How do we know what they were capable of? Were they, the fossils are just one part of them, we don't know exactly what they did. I think we know what they ate. And I think that we do have proof of stuff because things get buried in mud. They die suddenly and they get buried in some kind of avalanche or something, So we have a lot of proof of what we do dig up. Oh, also there was something I wanted to mention about exploding whales on the beach. I was listening to this. Beach whales, if they're left out in the sun, can literally explode and they blow up like an explosion. They make a serious explosion. And there's been a lot of explosions lately. And I think some things were blamed on, rotting corpses or something like that blow up. And they've been known, mammals do blow up when they're left out. They have a lot of gases. So maybe they have some sort of living gas, and maybe when they got too close to something, they would just exhale some kind of fire. Just a chemical reaction. Maybe they, mixed with oxygen and whatever you make fire with, it's, or maybe they got too close to a candle. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to make fire. It's not just one way. You got spark and oxygen and fuel. There's lots of ways to combine those things, right? Definitely.
Right, to make it combustible. What's spontaneous human combustion? I mean, that's a crazy phenomenon, and it's been known to happen. That's a crazy subject too. So anyway, so I think there is proof that we did live along, and there's so much evidence, even in everywhere you look, like cave drawings and old artwork, any artwork. There's always a UFO somewhere and some kind of weird creature, and there's a dragon and a unicorn. I mean, I think we lived amongst these things, and I don't know if they were created, or if they were uncreated, or they were destroyed, or they were experimental. Like, how did that griffin? The griffin was like a flying lion. That's crazy, right? A cat that flies, so that would be a furry bird, right? So,
Did you just say furry bird? Did you just say furry bird, Daryl?
Furry bird.
I'm not sure we could be friends anymore. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And why do we say if pigs can fly? Like, who made that up? Pigs don't fly. Did they ever fly? I don't know.
Hey, why not? Hey, if dragons could fly, I'm going to buy that pigs at one time could fly. Why the fuck not? Why the fuck not? We are in the third hour, so F-bombs fly. F-bombs definitely fly, Daryl. See how it looks. Sometimes the jokes make themselves. Okay, so Daryl here in New York, a good friend of mine. Links in the description. And give her YouTube channel a follow. You're the best. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the amazing input as always. You're amazing.
Great show, Mike. Great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we're still doing this. Again, we're going to do a third-ish hour, right? I think the thing is, right, like the thing that wore me out is going into the third hour and like trying to like count the time to the third hour. So look, we got a little, let's say a little bit more time. We're going to call it a third-ish hour. And, if it's like 20 minutes, it's 20 minutes. Like we got time for you. If you got some things that maybe were jogged in your ideas of maybe what you thought about dragons and somebody else kind of kicked a fire into that and you got something to say, we have a little bit of time for you. So 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org and we'll put you on the show. And it's as simple as that. Let's go back to Matt in Colorado. You're on Troubled Minds, my friend. What's up? Go right ahead. You got some other ideas here?
Well, yeah, APOC, she kicked some fire into me. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I had a note earlier that I didn't get to, and I was saying the same thing that APOC was saying about the connection with UFOs, and this could be like a twofold sort of look at it. Maybe, back in the day, they saw things in the sky, and they didn't know how to describe them. And that happens with, UFOs, and they're like in the Bible with Ezekiel, and it was a wheel within a wheel with the spokes coming out and the flames coming down. And they didn't quite have the language to describe UFOs. Well, what if the same thing happened with dragons? What if dragon was another term for a similar sort of thing that they were seeing? And I think there are UFOs or stories of UFOs or supposed video footage of UFOs that very much do look like a dragon. And so if ancient people were seeing those in their skies, then they might have called them dragons because, flying saucer, UFO, those words didn't exist yet in their language. So maybe it was just how they described the same phenomena. But, if we go back to the Sumerian civilization in the Vedic text, and they talk about the Vamana, the flying saucers, and there's stories about where they were actually battling one side of these Vamanas or UFOs versus another side. They were having battles and wars in the sky, whilst the humans were having warfare on the ground, right? So like certain ones of the UFOs were siding with these humans and the other ones were siding with the other ones. Well, if you picture that kind of battle going on and whatever weaponry they had on these UFOs, and you see, like, just picture a laser beam shooting down and stuff blowing up, they might have said, hey, that's dragons flying through the sky, shooting fire out of their mouths. Maybe that's just how they were describing what they were seeing in a way that now seems different to us. So, that's one theory. And then APOC also brought up of back to the, maybe these are or something like astral beings or related to what I call second dimensional energy, which is the lightning. And I think the lightning and that kind of primordial energy, there's something there. And I saw when I was researching on dragon videos today, I saw a couple. It was top 10 dragon videos, top 5 dragon videos, and there were several of them that were taking place during thunderstorms. Now, yeah, that could be, graphic editing software and stuff like that, and somebody hoaxing. Okay, so it's a YouTube video. We got to take that with a grain of salt. But there might be something to what APOC was saying, that these were sort of quasi-interdimensional, overlapping energy beings that were based on lightning and electricity and things like that. So I thought that was interesting. And also in terms of, from the beginning of your initial question of why haven't we found any fossils of them or any remains of them, one of the things to, I sent you a picture today of this, basically a dragon, 6-foot wingspan, kind of like a pterodactyl, called a ramform cord. And they don't even know the species yet, but they think it's one of the pterosaurs, but they don't even know. And they just discovered that. Okay, so my point here is they just discovered something. They have a fossil. They don't even know what species it is yet. Okay, well, if that's true, then dragons could exist, and we haven't discovered them yet, and they don't have a fossil yet, and they don't know what species it is yet. And it might be 10 years from now, they discover some fossil of a dragon. We don't know. We're discovering new stuff and new species all the time. So just because we don't have proof and evidence and have it bones and fossil record doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Absolutely the opposite, because we have that happen all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I got the article up that you sent me. This is from Live Science. This is actually as late as September 17, 2021. Flying dragon fossil found preserved inside a rock in Chilean desert, right? And this is the first time the creature has been found in the southern hemisphere. And that's the whole point, right? So we're talking about... this is a similar picture here. It's not the one that they're talking about, but I don't know, exactly right. Especially, look, think about it this way. Like some people have even suggested that there was an overlap in, let's say, human terms with dinosaurs, and dinosaur tracks and human tracks next to each other, and who knows, right? Because kind of going through the sands at times, sort of stuff. But even if it didn't exist in those terms, could it exist in a collective unconscious or subconscious zeitgeist that gets passed on from generation to generation, right? So it doesn't even necessarily have to be that we rode T-Rexes and Triceratops and whatnot. But if at some point somewhere down the line these stories got passed on, and you see the cave drawings, right, of all the ridiculous shit, it's like, okay, well, what were they? Were they making shit up? I mean, because look, here's the good thing, and I'll tell you this is a good thing, Matt. The thing I haven't seen in a cave drawing is Cthulhu, and that's a good fucking thing. That's the good fucking thing. But otherwise, there's all kinds of ridiculous shit. There's there's ancient animals, and there's arguably dinosaurs, and I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm willing to believe that our timelines are off, and that maybe, just maybe, why not, right? We're drinking the maybe juice anyway.
Yeah, I'm out here in Colorado, and we'd go out. So the side of Colorado I'm on is only 30 miles from Utah. And a friend of mine knew about these petroglyphs out there in Utah that were secret. So they're not on any map. They're not known. It's only insider knowledge. And it's because they don't want the public to know, because stupid people will go out there and, do spray paint.
Yeah, they're going to pour their beer on it and light a campfire, and they're going to, write on the rock, Mike was here and shit. Get the fuck out of here. Would you people stop doing that stuff? Stop. Just fucking stop, please.
Right. So it was very few people knew about this. And so I got the inside scoop, and we went out there, and it was a long hike. It was 4 or 5 miles out in the hot Utah desert. And we went out there, and I saw these petroglyphs, and I'm telling you, it was aliens. You could clearly see they were depicting aliens and other beings. Now, most people would interpret these as these were the shamans doing spiritual journeys. Maybe they took a bunch of peyote, or some magic mushrooms or something, but they were seeing something, because I've seen these things with my own eyes standing there, and these are not human beings. These are other beings. And, those things, they're out there, 1,200 years old, on the sandstone walls. So how'd they get there? The guys carved them. Why did the guys carve them? Where'd they come up with the things to carve them? They saw something. Where did they see them? Were they tripping on peyote, or they see them in the sky, or the ship came down and landed and the guys hopped out? I don't fucking know. But I know that they chiseled onto that wall something they saw. Either they were tripping, which is fine, because if they were tripping, they were going into a different dimensional realm. They're going into the astral realm, which still could mean those were legit beings. They're just beings on a different level. So that's what I got for you.
All right. I appreciate it. Very, very, very good stuff. Per usual, Matt in Colorado. Have a nice trip out there with the psilocybin coming into its own.
Yeah, we're going to legalize that. In Denver, it's legalized. It was 50.1% of the vote a couple years ago to legalize it in Denver. And this year, we're putting it on the ballot for the whole state. So we'll see if we can get 50.1% again.
Yeah, why not? And there you go. Appreciate it. Thanks for being you. Always a pleasure. Matt in Colorado. Have a nice trip. We'll talk to you soon. Have a fantastic one. We're talking about, tonight we are the Dragonologist. And what that means is somebody who studies dragons. And tonight, because we're having a conversation together, we are the collective Dragonologist, right? So do you believe at any point in history dragons were real? And it could be physically, it could be spiritually, it could be, who knows, right? There's spirit animals. There's so many angles you can take this. And as you know, this is not a declaration of truth. This is just a conversation. Everybody relax. This is not a cult. We're not going to be like a kiss the cross or anything like that, or kiss the ring. Sorry if I pissed anybody off by saying that, but we're not going to do that. We're just talking. All right. That's it. 702-957-1037. We got a little time for you if you got a little time for us. Thanks, Matt. Let's go to Jennifer in Missouri. Ready to take this sucker off the rails, off the cliff in his spinning fiery spiral. What's up, Jen? How are you tonight? Welcome to Trump.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, you're just in time. What do you know about dragons, my friend?
I better call, because I was thinking about this. But I wanted to make sure that because people are having some really cool ideas, and I was like, yeah, these are all so. I mean, we've kind of deduced that we all kind of feel like there's some kind of connection with the dragon. That there's some type of connection for sure. And I agree that there is, and I can see all kinds of things that line up, and I'm going to go over a few of them that just kind of come up in my mind. But there's not really anything with what I'm going to bring up. It's not really so much about, coming to some kind of conclusion. It's just kind of interesting. Like you have in India, but not just in India, in the entire Indo region right there, the account of the Nagas. And that they were these very kind of an interesting coincidence, because they were apparently incredibly wise, and they were more ancient than man could remember. They were these ancient beings that were with mankind for a long time. And you have the same, and they could speak, which is very interesting. They were able to or they were somehow communicating to humanity wisdom and information, and you can see them carved into all of the the Vedic temples and stuff like that. That's just amazing. 7-headed serpents and things like this, but also just the Nagas, that they're kind of snake beings that have arms and human heads in a way. In some depictions, in other depictions, they look like a lion in the face even. And you see the lion a lot of times in the more far eastern dragons, where they look like a lion in the face, with this whole idea about the furriness and very odd. But then you also have the account also in Far East Asia that you have their water. They're in the water, the same as the Nagas. The Nagas, a lot of those temples are built deep down into the ground, so deep, and it's so strange But if you're standing on the surface of the earth there and you're looking at it across, you won't even see it because it's dug down into the ground. But it's this immaculate, unbelievable, impossible temple, city of some kind. And supposedly it was like these beings are depicted down there on the artwork. And I can't remember the exact thing. I'll have to like find it and post it. Anyway, so you have that kind of depiction going on about the Nagas. And then you have over in the Oracle of Delphi, the Python. And in the Oracle of Delphi, the whole gist of that was initially it was no virgins, it was no anyone. It was a python that was down under in a cave underneath the ground. And it was like a soothsayer, which is exactly the same thing with the serpent, the soothsayer. All those kind of references to the Nessenes and the Essenes and the Nassa and everything. There's all these references. They're very, it seems so insistent that it's like it's pushing towards this idea of this hiss thing. And you have that coming across in all of the languages and stuff like that. But when you're looking at the Delphi Oracle, the python, the same thing, being under the ground in a cave, and it was a great python. Apollo killed it. And then after that, he dedicated it to Apollo, and then the Delphi Oracle was formed, where these women would come in, and they would inhale the vapor. People said, like nowadays, that they were inhaling just the gases of the deep earth. But the myth actually is that it was the remnants of the python kind of stewing under there on the surface of some type of underground, heat source of some kind or whatever. But the fumes were coming up and they were inhaling that. And in that case, they were taking up on the spirit of the python. You also have that follow right up to Pythagoreans and Pythagoras, which means python, right back to the whole snake thing. And the reason I'm mentioning the snake and why they may be like, well, a dragon's not a snake, but a worm literally means serpent. And the worm, in Germanic terms, like the Jorgamonder, is also a dragon. So this correlation between the serpent, the worm, and the dragon spans across the entire planet. You go down also too, if you go down to South America, you have this instance with the Mayan and the Inca too, where they're referencing the same kind of thing. And some people say and speculate that underneath the Mayan temples, where they were doing the great sacrifices to the sun, that there was actually a being, a creature, some type of, like a serpent, a dragon, that was living underneath that in the in all the tunnels and caverns and everything, that at one time were filled with water. And it would come up, and they were, somehow in connection with this creature or creatures. I don't know if it was more than one. It seems like there could have been more than one, because the Nagas are usually referenced as being several of them. But they have these unique personalities as if they're real. You also have this account that's, okay, so we do have all of those accounts, and you have Jorgamonder, which is depicted as basically the ender of things, like he's this giant dragon represented once again with the water aspect, as if it's living in the water. But I think that it's really important that they see these things as like in their storylines, these are literal creatures that they're interacting with. They're almost like human beings and have intelligence, and they're witty. You have the serpent guarding the tree. When we talked about that a little bit, I didn't really go into it, and I haven't done a whole lot of research on that, but I know that there's a folklore with that the tree of, good and evil, the tree of knowledge, was guarded by a dragon, a serpent, a Wyrm, that it was actually being guarded. And this is I believe it was a dragon, a serpent, and a Wyrm, because that depiction of them guarding something very special or a treasure under the earth, that they're somehow, because they're always depicted that way in all of the more European terms, but also too, you have that, I'm pretty sure, I'll just stay with that there, because I don't have anything to back it up on certainty that they're depicted as guarding treasure in the Far East. I'm not sure if that's depicted that way, but I think that they are kind of seen if they're depicting good fortune, and if they're seen that way, then there might be some reference there that could be found. Then you also have this weird thing with the Order of the Dragon, with like Vlad the Impaler, and you have that come up quite a bit. There's some kind of reference there, and I always thought it was somehow correlating to like Draco, like the constellation Draco, But it might not be. It could be something completely different, because there's also this idea that there's like this possibility that in the time of dinosaurs and things like that, that there could have been humanoid type of beings that may have been like intelligent reptiles or something. And
like the
sources of that just
like the Sleestack from Land of the Lost, right? Like something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, we may as well throw that in there. Sorry, go ahead.
Might as well throw it in. There might be some kind of, because it could be some kind of serious reference to it. And the weird thing about this, though, is birds and the flying dragon. Because the only thing that flies besides a dragon is a bird, you know? Like, and you have the pterodactyls and everything. But I thought this was very interesting to add in, because you have the raven, the parrots, and things like that. Some birds can speak like a human being can speak. They can speak. And that's just modern, right? And that's nothing impressive. But what if there was at one point, because we're doing just the maybe what if thing, there was at some point possibly that ability to speak, or maybe we learn to speak from them. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe we learn language from birds. I mean, there's no telling, because it's very strange about when they talk about the original dinosaurs, they say they could have looked like giant hens, essentially. Like, I know it sounds completely crazy, but they were like, I remember reading an article like a year or so ago, look up, dinosaurs could have looked like giant chickens or something like that. Like, I don't know what you'd Google up, but like, that's a actual, like, something that came out of National Geographic or something like that, but that they could have been covered like in feathers or something. But essentially the idea, though, they would have to be bird-like to be able to fly at all. And I think that's very important to mention, because they would have to have these light sort of somehow. But that you cannot deny the connection that you can see between birds and reptiles. So there's some kind of strange, weird connection going on there. And you think about birds, that they're the only animal that can speak like a human being. And so there's something very weird and tricky going on there. But you also mention the whole David Icke thing and the V thing, that they're like draconian, literal reptilian beings. People believe that this is possibly existing, and that they're ancient, and there's some type of caste system, and that they are. So it ties back into the idea, if there's anything to that, and I don't know if there is. I mean, that sounds completely crazy, but if I haven't seen it.
Hey, you're on troubled minds, Jen. You're safe. You're totally safe.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's possible. I mean, I'm willing to you know, what's the word? Like, entertain the concept, because there are all these other weird things. But if I'm willing to accept that they took the time to carve serpentine creatures into the walls of the most magnificent architectural structures on the planet, then I'm willing to accept that there must be some type of ancient human interest of having associated and depicting them in that exact way. Not to mention just the plain Jane version of the idea that there were obviously like crocodiles and enormous pythons and even giant lizards. They don't even have to be that big to be terrifying, because their bite, like even today with the you know, what's that one that if it bites you, like it'll kill you later anyway, like even if it bites you, the you know, the thing, the Gila monster. Is it the Gila monster?
Yeah,
whatever.
I think so. Yeah,
So you have like,
yep,
you have these like all these, you know, and it's been depicted so many times in pop culture too, that these snakes are somehow purveyors of like wisdom and seeing into the truth in the heart of mankind. But it's so bizarre, because it's like we know of these reptilians as reptiles being cold-blooded, and we always think of it that way. But I do. It makes me, oh, not to mention one last thing. You know, it's interesting to mention that the cosmic perspective of what is this dimension of the dragon. When I was looking into the Saturn cult thing a while back, they were talking about, and off and on here and there, but they were talking about that there was a display in the cosmos that was visible to mankind in the ancient world. And what it was there was this interaction going on between Saturn, Mars, and Venus, and maybe perhaps even Jupiter. And this was occurring like stage side show, watching this display going on in the sky. And there were it looked like a fire breathing dragon in the sky, kind of frozen there, like you see the nebulas and everything when you see all the photographs of stars out in space. And it was the literal battle going on of what would dominate the sky in a way as Saturn was pulling away from the Earth. And I'm not sold on Saturn belief that actually was, has anything to do, that it was closer. I'm not sold on that idea. But it could have been anything of that kind where they were seeing a display in the screen of the sky of something cosmically happening very close up that just left an enormous imprint on the psyche, that it looked like something like the idea that they later developed. They were like, it was like a worm perhaps, which means like a snake, which means like a dragon. They were drawing this kind of connection there. But the Wyrm are always connected with this wisdom and all this strange and the weird. But anyway, I wanted to call on that stuff because those are some interesting points to consider when we're thinking about the dragon and what is it. And I believe in the idea of the dragons. We don't see them, but could it be that they've gone, if they were from under the ground, or they were depicted as living down in the ground to begin with, and you would have to make a way for them and sort of charm them, so to speak, into coming and conversing with you or being operative with a human being, which could be very, very dangerous in a way. There's just so much reference to it that I think there could be something very, very much to it. Because they're always in the caves, they're always under the ground, they're always in the water, down in the oceans and stuff. And there must be something to it. So I think it's very fascinating. Yeah. And I would like to know more.
Yeah, 100%. We didn't even get to the water, really. You were talking about the Naga, and that's literally water serpents is what that is. It's like an entire race of millions of these things. And even more nutty about all this, right? We didn't even get to a lot of back to the serpent, like you're describing, the basic, like you said, kind of the vanilla idea of the serpent, the caduceus, the Garden of Eden. Literally, we didn't touch any of this tonight. And that's the craziest part about the idea of the dragon itself as guarding some sort of treasure in sort of the Western lore. Again, Smaug the dragon, right, from Lord of the Rings, he's sitting on the biggest pile of treasure Middle Earth has ever seen. And so at some point you're that's
what is
seriously
it?
Metaphorical. Yeah. What is it?
It is so important.
Yeah. There's something there.
And I haven't really, I think I just kind of, I tied the dragon thing. This was always coming up all the time, and I was thinking of it as other things. But when you think, and I think there's a tendency, with the giants, and the fae folk, and unicorns, and dragons, and griffins, and centaurs, and minotaurs, and all that stuff, that there must have been something really weird going on. But there's this very serious take on it all. And it doesn't have to all be it doesn't have to be symbolic. Oh, the satires, that's the fawn thing. They're very serious about that stuff. Pan. That's a change of subject. That Pan was a big deal, a really big deal. Anyway.
Which we will get to at some point as well. Jennifer, you're the best. Thanks for dipping in. Thanks for again spiraling this car off the cliff. You're the best. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Here, a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. She's got a YouTube channel. Check it out. Links in the description down below. Give her a follow, please. Look, this is the thing, right? This is the whole idea of doing this together. Like I said, I could do some sanitized, were dragons real or were they not, for 20 minutes and edit out all the ums and ahs and all the weird pauses and the bumper music and all, right? But look, it would not be magical. It would not be. Look what happens when you get all these people contribute to an idea, because everybody sees things slightly differently. Everybody has different levels of knowledge regarding esoteric or otherwise. This is a beautiful thing. This is why we come together and talk about this stuff. And thank you to Jennifer. Thank you to all the amazing callers. Like I said, hey, look, if you haven't followed all the amazing folks in the chat down below, again, books, people selling books and all the rest of this stuff, YouTube channels, they got Instagrams. What's up, Tam Bam? Welcome back, Tam Bam. Glad to have you back. Thank you for the tip, Tam Bam, over on Rockfin. Did it come through on Rockfin yet? It did not. It came through on my phone. Thank you for the tip, Tam Bam. Glad to have you back. She's going through some power outages and whatnot. And in South Africa, wouldn't you know it, in the middle of July, it's cold. She's cold over there. We're warm over here. And this fire behind me is exactly how we feel right now. It's so strange to me when I think of Christmas in the summer, but that's how Tam Bam gets it. so thank you very much. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad the family's safe. I'm glad you're able to come back and kick it and enjoy your time and enjoy our time together. Look, this is what this is about. It's literally always been about this, just kind of talking, just hey, like no judgment. What do people believe, or not even believe? Let's entertain some ideas. It's that whole right, drinking the maybe juice, the Aristotle thing, right? It's the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it, and that's what this has always been about. So, like I said, and I'll say it again because I got some laughs over there on Rockfin. We're not doing Kiss the Cross. We're not doing Kiss the Ring. We're not doing that shit. We're not doing it. It's not what this is about. It's a conversation. It's not about truth. It's about possibility, and that tells you everything you need to know. So let's GTFO. Perfect. See, this is what I'm saying. So kind of, it feels like a natural stopping point in the show, right? There's no calls. We've got all the takes from everybody, and that's that, right? I mean, like trying to burn this out for another 30 minutes just exhausts me. So let's end this bitch. Let's do it. Let's just smash the button, play the music. And there you go. We got our third-ish hour, right? Some extra time if we need it, and some conversations, may deem an entire third hour, or maybe even more. But I don't know. It's like it's just kind of like it's like punching a time clock when you're like, okay, I got to go till 10, right? Fuck it. We don't got to do anything. Nobody tells us when to start. We got to start because of our radio slot, but nobody tells us when to stop. So there you go. Look. As we finish, you guys know the drill. This is not about any of that other stuff. This is not about division politics. This is not about like telling people they're wrong and spitting in people's faces and getting all. Let's just talk and think and have a good time and suspend our, let's say, belief in the real world and let's say collectively consider all the things elsewhere. Why not? Hey, like I said, if we're not talking about dragons, who the fuck is talking about dragons? All right. So as we finish, it goes like this. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thanks for all the amazing phone calls. Thanks for thanks for all the love and support. Thanks for all the downloads. Again, 350 or 360. I can't even count. 360,000 down, 365,000 downloads. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of attention. It's a lot of love. It's a lot of interest. It's a lot of great people contributing to this, and thank you all. Each and every one of you out there. I know there's a lot of people that listen on the podcast feed that don't really spend a lot of time with us live. It's a smaller, tighter group live, but hey, look, the ideas. It's about the ideas. Thanks for being part of this. You guys know the drill. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific. The bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we got tomorrow. So we'll see you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific. If you want to help the show, there are a number of ways. We got merchandise at troubledfans.com. Troubledfans.com. New stuff is up there. We got, if you want to support the show with money, I appreciate it very much. Rockfin is the best way. Second is going to be Patreon. Third is going to be Twitch. And then, of course, if you don't want to spend money and you do love the show, spend your time. Spread the word. Spread the word. Spread the word. Spread the word. That's the most important thing. You spending your time and energy with us and spreading the word beats the algorithms all day, every day. We are not robots. We are people. And guess what? We can beat the algorithms. If you want to help the show and not spend money, spread the word. Number 2, listen to the podcast feed. Over 450 episodes, over four plus years. Tons of stuff up there. Literally topics to suit every desire and need in the Wooville or non-Wooville. We do parapolitics and you name it. Go back and listen to that like on a Saturday when like there's nothing going on. Listen to an old show and see what's happening. I've changed. I'm not the same person I was when we started this, and I don't expect that you will be also. That's part of the journey. It's part of becoming who we need to be, who we want to become. That's what this is all about. So thank you so much for all of that. Each and every one of you, I see you out there. Every download tickles my soul. And thank you so much for all your amazing takes and all the amazing chat. So that's GTFO. It goes exactly like this. As we finish, be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.